The Premier League kicked off this weekend, so here's one burning question I have for every team as they embark on their quest for glory. Arsenal. Will Saka run out of steam? Many people would have questioned their failure to sign a striker so far, but I think they have enough between Havertz and Jesus. For me, it's whether they made a mistake by losing Smith Rowe without a clear replacement in wide areas. It's asking a lot of Saka, Martinelli, and Trossard over the course of another season, but Saka especially plays a lot of minutes, and Arteta has claimed he doesn't need more rest, but I think he does, especially if they want to win the league. Aston Villa. Is the Champions League tax real? Outside of City and Arsenal, nobody is guaranteed a top 4 spot, but still, I'm doubtful that Villa are shoo-ins for Europe. They were really relying on a thin squad last year, and they've made some good additions to bolster it, so there shouldn't be any excuses, other than now competing in the taxing Champions League group stage, which has become even more difficult this season. Will that affect their performance in the Premier League? That's what I'm looking to find out. Bournemouth. Is Andoni Iraola a top-class manager? If he is, this team has more than enough quality to be competing for the top half, even with the loss of Dominic Solanke. I'd also like to see growth from the young back line, which often comes from the coach's tactical decisions in midfield. If Iraola is really that good, Bournemouth could be a force for the next few seasons, before he's inevitably picked off by a top club. Brentford. Can their big swings improve? Brentford has been heralded for making small, relatively unknown signings that have kept them in the Premier League. But over the past couple of seasons, they've also taken some big swings, none of which have truly panned out so far. Damsgaard, Shada, Ayer, Lewis Potter, these are just some of the guys who they actually paid a considerable fee for, who haven't quite performed up to that standard. Brentford could lose Ivan Toney or Brian Mbeumo going forward, and I'm wondering who will replace their output if they want to remain a Premier League fixture. Brighton. Where is Evan Ferguson? I could question their coaching change, but I think Brighton is too good to have significant problems due to that. Instead, I'm wondering about their young star Evan Ferguson, and whether he'll get enough chances to lead the line and prove his value. If he does, he could be the subject of a huge transfer in the summer. If not, he might just fade into obscurity. Chelsea. Will the ownership and fans have patience? Personally, I think Chelsea will have a good season, but with so many unproven players and too big of a squad, it's no guarantee. They keep calling it a project, but what exactly is that project, and who's going to be part of it? I think everyone in the building needs to put their foot on the brakes for one season, and just let the team be as it will. They need patience with the coach, with the players, and with the results. Knowing Chelsea's track record, though, I'm not quite sure that will happen. Crystal Palace. Can Glasner convince his top players to stay? Last season was very promising, but not only does Glasner need to sustain it, he needs to improve it in order to keep Palace on an upward trajectory. Elise is already gone, and they don't have the pulling power that other clubs do unless their team is performing at a high level. The likes of Gay, Anderson, Wharton, and Eze can't be out the door in the next year if Crystal Palace truly want to compete for the top half. Everton. Can the Toffees weather the storm? It's no secret that financial mismanagement and poor transfer policy set them back a decade, but Everton is a huge club, and they could easily build back to top 6 contention. This season and the next few are all about weathering the storm, and making sure they don't lose all traction in the Premier League. A relegation could seriously deter potential takeover and other top players from coming to the club. Fulham. Can Marco Silva keep getting the best out of his players? When Mitrovic jumped ship last summer, I was pretty confident that Marco Silva would too. But he didn't, and Fulham were the benefactors of that decision. If I'm being honest, I think Fulham's squad is pretty poor, and they are definitely relegation fodder in the next few seasons. But Silva keeps getting the best out of middling, just decent Premier League players, and I think if he continues to do that, Fulham will be just alright. Ipswich. Can they put together a Premier League level defense? There are always questions about goals, but to survive the drop, teams can't be shipping 3 goals a game. They've got a back line filled with young defenders, Premier League rejects, and players without top-level experience. Should they have picked up someone like a Cody or Vestergaard to match their promoted peers? We're going to find out. Leicester City. Are there any goals in the squad? It sounds like a ridiculous question when Jamie Vardy is still contracted by the Foxes, but he's 37. Patson Daka still hasn't kicked on since his arrival from Salzburg, and Kieran Dewsbury Hall and Kelechi Iheanacho are out the door, putting a lot of pressure on wingers Mavididi, Fatawu, and Decordova-Reid to provide the goals. I'm not sure I see it happening. Liverpool. Does Liverpool's identity have to change? Losing Jurgen Klopp is the biggest shakeup of the Premier League since Erling Haaland's arrival, and with no signings or departures of note, the adaptation to the change in manager is the real litmus test for how good Liverpool can be this year. As another relatively attack-minded manager, Slot can bridge the gap well, but he'll have his own tactical and personnel decisions to make. Can he ingratiate himself with the players and fans? Manchester City. Can they keep turning draws into wins? We know they'll destroy many teams, but in those 0-0 or 1-1 scenarios, do they have the firepower to pick out a goal? Losing Alvarez, KDB getting older, Savio first season tax, Bob injured, Grealish out of form, Nunez not a great replacement as of yet. All of these add up to a team that might struggle in close, defensive games. That's what will make the difference in the race with Arsenal, who proved that they can get those clutch victories last season. Manchester United. Is Mason Mount the answer in midfield? United has been in limbo for years, but it looks like they're committing to Ten Hag and his Dutch contingent, regardless of whether that's the right choice. At least it's a choice. Even after some good business this summer, the Red Devils look incredibly light in midfield, especially when it comes to linking players and workhorses. Mount has those qualities in abundance, and could complement Fernandes and Mainu in the 8 role. Relying on Casemiro and McTominay for another season will only lead to more holes, so United really need the Englishman to step up. Newcastle United. Which of the previous 2 seasons is the real Newcastle? In 22-23, the Magpies skyrocketed up the table and into the Champions League places in their first full season post-takeover. Last year, they came back down to earth, finishing 7th, but they suffered from a serious injury bug, and their big signing being suspended. This is the season we find out who they really are, and whether Eddie Howe is the man to lead them forward. Nottingham Forest. What is Nottingham Forest's project? Dozens of new signings, a new coach, terrible league finishes, and a VAR controversy have made Forest's return to the Premier League a confusing one. They've managed to stay up, but it's now time to buckle down and pick a direction. Which players are building blocks, and who should be cut loose? What formation and tactics are suited to their best 11? Is Nuno the right man for the job? These are all questions that come back to the simple fact that Forest's project needs more direction. Southampton. Does one season make all the difference? Returning a lot of players from their relegation season is a risk, with not a lot of prominent incomings to be noted. Are Armstrong, Mara, Alcaraz, Onuachu, Bazunu, Smallbone, and more ready to step up to the next level? Tottenham. Can Ange sort out the high line? I'm quietly confident about Tottenham's hopes to at least be exciting and challenging for the top 4, especially with an open race behind City and Arsenal, but they absolutely can't give away points and goal difference for tactical reasons. Whether it's players' ability to execute the plan or better game management, if Ange can cut out 7 to 10 goals conceded, they can have a great season. West Ham. Is this one season too early? They were the summer window winners, splashing the cash on a number of good signings. But are they ready to push on higher in the table so soon? There's no reason why not, with lots of Premier League experience and talent in the squad, but it's no sure thing with how competitive the league is, so I'm not ready to anoint them as surefire European contenders just yet. Wolves. Can they grow? Wolves had a good season last year, with their league position perhaps undermining just how impressive their campaign was. But with a tight wallet and lots of pretty good players, can they break out of the lower mid-table purgatory that the likes of Crystal Palace were in for years? Cunha, Hwang, and Gomes will need to have big seasons. What questions do you have about your own team's season? Leave them in the comments and subscribe for more Premier League content all year long.